The Cavaliers are an experienced team, but they look like they might still struggle in the ACC this year. They're going to have some decent talent, but the ACC overall seems like a pretty solid conference. There's going to be a lot of teams within that 5 to 7 win range, and there will be a few that unfortunately do fall below 5 wins. For Virginia, with their schedule, it is kind of tough to see them meeting that threshold, but we'll have to see how it pans out. The first game of the year should be a pretty easy win against Richmond, but they go on the road to face their first ACC opponent in just week 2 with that road trip to Wake Forest. This is a decent Wake team. They have a pretty easy schedule, so they're one of those teams that could be in that 5 to 7 win range, capable of making a bowl game, but in reality, they'll probably fall just short, not unsimilar to Virginia. Now, Maryland, as their second non conference game, is actually a pretty difficult game. Even though it's at home, this is a solid Maryland team. They might also end up missing a bowl game, but that's really just to speak to the competition the Big Ten's going to have in the middle of the conference. There's a lot of really good teams in there that are going to be finishing with bad records. Same goes for the SEC this year. Road trip to Coastal Carolina should be another win. The Chanticleers aren't nearly as good as they were when they had Grayson McCall, so they won't be a team that we'll expect to try and push for a playoff spot like we would have a couple years ago if we had this 12-team format. The first bye week comes on September 28th, and out of that, a game against Boston College at home is actually a pretty winnable matchup. Boston College is also going to struggle this season. So I wouldn't be completely shocked if Virginia was able to get that as one of their ACC wins. Then they enter a super, super brutal section here with Louisville, a road trip to Clemson, and North Carolina. All three of those are going to end up being losses for the Cavaliers. Out of that second bye week, they have 2 games on here that are maybe winnable, and 2 that are just absolutely brutal. The road trip to Pitt is the first of those winnable games, and it's definitely a lot easier to win than the other one. Pitt's going to be a decent team. They definitely underperformed expectations last year, going just 3-9. This year they might be able to do a little bit better. But the fact that this is on the road makes this a tough game for Virginia. Notre Dame is going to be a brutal matchup there. That's one of the games that we just don't expect Virginia to win whatsoever. And now this home game against SMU is one that Virginia could maybe win. And the only reasoning behind this is even though we've got SMU doing pretty well this year, this is a late game in the season for them, and they are just now making their move to the Power Four, which means the level of competition that they're going to be consistently playing every week might wear them out a bit more than the other typical ACC team. So this could be a game where they slip up. Probably not going to happen, but definitely something to watch out for there as a potential home win for Virginia. And then finally, the road trip to Virginia Tech. Virginia fans don't want to hear this, but their rivals are getting better. And this is going to be a really solid Virginia Tech team, probably around the 8 or 9 win mark. A lot of people expect them to do really well. I'm right along with them. This is going to be a good team, a lot of returning production. I believe the most out of any Power 4 team. So they're going to be a really tough team to beat, especially on the road. The home and away games are even for Virginia with 6 apiece. Only 2 of their opponents are ranked in our rank and file top 25. That would be Clemson and Notre Dame. Now that I look at it, I think Louisville's in there also, so that should be 3 and a schedule difficulty of 5 out of 10. Looking at the official prediction, there's a lot more red on here than a Virginia fan wants to see. But to make you feel a little bit better, this is probably the worst case scenario for Virginia. The only wins are coming against Richmond, Coastal Carolina, and Boston College. But taking a look at the rest of it, they could beat Wake Forest. It's a road trip, so it's going to be tough. but that's not completely out of the question. They could beat Maryland at home. Also, going to be a difficult game, but not out of the question that this Virginia team could win. Those next three with Louisville, Clemson, and North Carolina should be losses no matter what. But that game against Pitt is also a winnable matchup. So just counting those up, that's already 6 games that they have a chance to win. I said SMU a bit earlier as an upset. That's also possible. Probably the least likely, but I'd throw that on there also. So there's 7 possible wins here, and 5 games. I wouldn't really count Notre Dame or Virginia Tech as games they could win. So I think 7-5 is the absolute best case scenario, which means there's a chance that we could see Virginia in a bowl game. We did go on the low end of their record spectrum with 3-9, but this is a solid team. They could do a lot better than our projection here. The actual projected records 4.25 and 7.75, which is coming from adding up all of these percentages we assigned to the games. So it does favor another win, maybe a second one. I wouldn't be completely shocked if they did beat Maryland or they won at Pitt, even at Wake Forest, any of those games. You could throw another one on there, maybe 2, and have Virginia at 4-8 or 5-7, and I would not complain with that prediction. FPI's got them at 4.6 and 7.4. So kind of in between that 4 to 5 win range that I just mentioned, and only a 0.5% chance to make the playoffs. Realistically, with this schedule, it's just not going to happen. Virginia will not be able to upset enough teams to get in. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in our next video.